So the next test that we're going to be doing is a chlorine test. I don't know if, I know this is a brand new community, but if you've ever noticed in an older community, what I call the bleach rainbows on the fence, that's where you have a wooden fence in your backyard or the side yard, and you'll notice it has these arches where the wood's discolored. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
It's caused by the amount of chlorine that's in the tap water.
Wow.
When you have a sprinkler system and it sprays against the fence, it bleaches it over a period of time. Right? Isn't that interesting?
I never knew what that was.
But a minute ago, between the shots that we're doing here, you were telling me a really interesting story.
Yeah.
So I want you to get to meet your neighbor, Rhonda, anyway. So this is an interesting story,
Yeah, so,
which I did not know this. You were telling me that your husband used to be a truck driver.
yeah, he actually is a truck driver.
he is a
He
truck
has his
driver.
own business,
Okay.
and he picks up for a major water company, and he actually picks up for.
Yeah, you can say the name.
Okay, so he picks up for Nestle and for Ozarka, if I'm saying that correctly, and he picks up from the well where the water comes from,
Mhm.
and his job is to transport it to the plant where the water is filtered. Well, legally by law, his tank, you see the big tanks that the trucks carry the water in, is filled with chlorammonia, which is a combination of chlorine and ammonia.
Right.
The water then goes into the tank, and then he transports it to the plant.
Mhm.
There it goes through a huge filtration system,
Right.
and it is impossible to remove all of the chlorammonia from that water.
Wow.
So that water goes into the water that we buy, and you're intaking that, you're drinking that.
Wow.
So, and then also, let it be known that it's also the same company.
You mean the water comes from the same source?
Comes from
Whether
the same
you're
source.
buying Nestle or Ozarka, it's
That's
still
right.
the same
The
water.
label just is
The
different.
label's different. So one of the things that I wanted her to tell that story about is because the big, huge filtration system you're talking about, that's called an industrial reverse osmosis system. And I don't know if you're familiar with where Pasadena, Texas is, but on Red Bluff Road, that's where there's another bottled water manufacturer that takes Pasadena municipally supplied water and they run it through the filtration system, and then they put Pasadena city water back in bottles and sell it back to the consumers, which is just crazy. But we have a much better solution for you. Before we get to talking about the solution though, I do want to do a quick test about the chlorine out here. So this is what brought that conversation up,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So we're just going to do a chlorine test. I'm going to fill up a little container here with 25 milliliters of just regular tap water. I'm going to add what's called a pillow of a free chlorine reagent. So what we're looking for here is a discoloration to the water. If it turns kind of a pink or a red color when I add the reagent, we're just going to jostle it about a little bit. Wow, you can see how pink that is. So that tells us that free chlorine is present. Some places use a free chlorine. Some people use a combination disinfectant of ammonia and chlorine, which is called chloramine. That's what the city of Houston uses, for instance. But the ammonia that's in chloramine helps to stabilize the chlorine to make it further in the line, so they actually use less chlorine. But here it's just a free chlorine that we're testing for. So we're going to add a titrating solution here. And I'm going to add 1 drop at a time. And then we're going to shake it up until it turns clear. So there's 1. There's 2. Still pink, so we're going to add a 3rd drop. It's still there, so we're going to add a 4th drop. Right. Still has a little bit of a pink hue, so we add a 5th drop. It still has a little bit of a pink hue, so we're going to add a 6th drop until we get to where it is clear. So there's 6 drops. So now we take the number 6, we multiply it. It still has a pink hue. Let me add 1 more drop. Yeah. So there's 7 drops. That should take care of that pink hue. Does that look clear to you? It still has a pink hue. So we're now gonna add, that makes 8 drops. Let me grab a white napkin. To set up here. Still has a pink hue, or is it a little bit? So we're gonna add 1 more. We want it to be crystal clear. Wow. We're still at 9. I mean, keep going. Sorry, this test, I did it before we started filming, and it was testing about 8. So the chlorine level out here does fluctuate a little bit. We're gonna call it at 10. We're just gonna say it's 10. So incidentally, so the way we calculate the amount of chlorine in the water is we take the number of 10, because that's how many drops we added. We multiply that by 0.2, and that'll give us the parts per million of free chlorine that's in the tap water out here. So if you take 10, multiply by 0.2, you end up with 2 parts per million of chlorine. As ideal amount of chlorine in a swimming pool is actually 1 to 2 parts per million. So the chlorine out here in the tap water is what's ideal for a swimming pool. Okay?
It's
Pretty crazy.
Double the amount.
Double the amount, right. Now, chlorine is also a drying agent. So I know earlier you were telling me your daughter has eczema.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the things about chlorine is it'll actually dry out your skin. Have you ever noticed when you've gone swimming, or your daughter has, you get out and you have really dry skin?
Yes.
That's one of the causes of that. So you have about double the amount of chlorine in your tap water is what you would find in a normal swimming pool. Way too much. But now let me show you what we can do about it.